Hey guys, it's Rebecca. So today I'm going to be talking about all the books that I've had to read throughout the year for my English literature course at the University of Bristol. I don't know for anybody coming next year if it'll be like completely different, but this is the books that I had to read this year. I'm not going to include everything that I had to read throughout the year in this video because I had a whole module on poetry, so it was just like random poems that I just don't want to go through basically. And also there was a whole module on Middle English text. To be honest, I just wasn't really interested in those, and there were like a lot of like quite small text, like bits and pieces of Chaucer and things like that, and I just don't really want to go into that. But I'm going to include everything from my other modules, so I'm only going to actually include novels that I actually had to read or smaller books like novellas and things. So they're not in any particular order, and I'm not going to like set out which modules they were for and things, just in case like people aren't really interested. But anyway, I'm just gonna start talking about the books that I had to read. So one of the first books that I had to read this year was Mansfield Park by Jane Austen, which I actually never finished. I got like nearly halfway through and was actually enjoying it, but I had to move on to other things because I just didn't read it in time, which is actually quite bad. But like I'm just such a slow reader that I just like a lot of the times just can't keep up and just have to kind of prioritize what I need to read a lot of the time, even though like it is important to read everything. At Bristol you will have like a seminar or a tutorial every week where you have to discuss the book, and if you don't know what happens in the book then you'll either get spoiled or not be able to actually understand what's going on. There's like a new book like every single week really, so it's hard to keep up, especially like as a slow reader. And to be honest, I probably should have spent more time reading these last year, but it's like just quite hard and I wasn't actually expecting there to be so much reading, especially as somebody who's like so slow. But yeah, anyway, I got like nearly halfway through and actually was enjoying it. So yeah, I probably will go back to reading it at some point, but I have like a lot of new things to read for next year, so I don't know when I'll get to it, but I definitely do want to at some point because I definitely want to work through reading all of Jane Austen's books at some point, and I'll probably start with this one because the only one I've actually read is Pride and Prejudice. So since I'm halfway through and I remember everything that happened, I could pick it up at any point soon really and still remember everything. So another one of the books that I had to read early last year was The Good Soldier by Ford Madox Ford. I absolutely love this. To be honest, it's like more of a novella. It's like quite a short book. It's so well written, and to be honest it's just like quite quick, even though it's like quite character driven. Like I really enjoyed the plot. I don't know if you would like it if you aren't a person who enjoys character over plot, but I personally am a lot of the time, therefore I enjoyed it. But I don't know if you're more of like a plot kind of driven person that you'd enjoy it, but it is so short, so maybe even if you're not, then maybe you could still enjoy it. But I'll just read out what it says on the back of this because I'm really bad at like explaining plots and everything. But it's set before the First World War, and it tells the tale of two wealthy and sophisticated couples, one English, one American, as they travel, socialise and take the waters in the spa towns of Europe. They are playing the game in style. That game has begun to unravel, however, with compelling attention to the comic and the tragic results. The American narrator reveals his growing awareness of the sexual intrigues and emotional betrayals that lie behind its facade. Yeah, it's actually really good and just so character driven, as I said. I think I actually give this 5 stars because I actually was able to read it really quickly, and it's like really good to analyse, which is like perfect obviously for doing like a degree. It's like really good to analyse and there's a lot in it within such a short space. That's why I really enjoyed it, but I definitely recommend this. I definitely actually want to read it again because I'm so bad at remembering like details of books that I read like a couple of months ago. So like to be honest, like it'd be like entertaining for me to reread it definitely, and I absolutely love this, so I highly recommend it. So another one of the books I read was Heart of Darkness by Joseph Conrad. I actually didn't enjoy this book as much as I hoped to. I think like the one thing about this book that really made it better for me was the end, but it's just not that entertaining. I think I didn't have enough time to actually go into analysing this book because I feel like it's one of those books where everything is symbolic and everything means something, and you can tell the detail really actually is there, but I actually didn't have time to go into that kind of detail because I didn't do an essay on this. I also like struggled to actually know what was happening. I actually don't think I understood it, and I think that's like probably one of the things that like made me enjoy it less. I only had the chance just to read it as quickly as I could really, and therefore I didn't actually enjoy it that much because I don't think it had a plot, and I also don't think it had good developed characters, and that just took all the enjoyment away from me. So I'll read out again like the back of this book so that people generally know what it's about. It's set in the Congo during the period of rapid colonial expansion in the 19th century. The story deals with the highly disturbing effects of economic, social and political exploitation on European and African societies and the cataclysmic behaviour this induced in some individuals. I think that I would like to go back at some point and analyse it, but as I said, I haven't had a chance, so I think I'd give it like 3 stars or something like that, so maybe I will come back to it in the future, but I don't think anytime soon, to be honest. So another book that I read was To the Lighthouse by Virginia Woolf. I absolutely love this book. I gave it 4 or 5 stars, I think. It's literally amazing and small, so it's like really easy to read and so well written. It actually blew me away how well written this book is. At first, like, I found it very difficult to get into because I'd never read anything by Virginia Woolf before, and this is still the only Virginia Woolf book that I've read, and I definitely want to read more of hers now, but I absolutely love this, and like I genuinely need to read all of her books now because how she writes is one of the most beautiful writing styles like I've ever come across, ever. Like, it's genuinely beautiful, and it's one of those books that again doesn't really have much of a plot, but it's like very character driven. The characters are really explored and developed like completely and fully. That's one of the things that I really loved so much about this, and I think like it's quite a feminist book. Arguably, I think it's quite a feminist book, and I love those elements of it probably like the most, apart from like just generally how well written it is. Sometimes I genuinely had to put the book down because there was some bits that Virginia Woolf had written that she was like describing feelings that I had never actually knew that I had felt before, or experiences that I didn't know that I experienced it, and she was putting it into words, and like it was so like well written that like I found it like almost like intense, and I had to like take breaks between reading it, but it didn't take away by how much I enjoyed it because like I knew it was just like me like finding it quite intense because of like how well written it was, that like I had to always put it down and think about it because I was like, wow, I need to think about this, and it was happening like all the time throughout it. It took me a while to read it because like I had to keep putting it down and just like processing it. It's probably one of those books where it's best to go in blind and just kind of read it, but definitely push through like the first couple of pages because the point of views are like quite confusing. It'll like jump from head to head really quickly, but eventually like it's quite easy to get used to, and I definitely recommend this book. It's genuinely now one of my favourites, and I cannot wait to read more Virginia Woolf books. So the next book I read was The Awakening by Ketchikan. This is another feminist book, and I absolutely loved it. So I definitely think that this is one of those books where you kind of have to go in blind, but the characters are so well developed and genuinely it's so easy to read. Again, it's like quite a small book, but I don't know if you can see like I have so many like tabs in here because I did an essay on this, and like it was extremely entertaining to analyse and kind of go through it bit by bit. I absolutely loved it, and it was such a good book to be able to do for my degree, and I'm so happy that I actually got to do an essay on it because I actually genuinely really enjoyed this book, and I highly recommend it. So another text that I had to read this year was Oedipus the King by Sophocles, which I actually didn't read. For anybody who wants to go to the University of Bristol or anything, I'm just gonna put that in there. That was one of the plays that we had to read, but I got like a couple of pages in and I didn't have time to read it, to be honest, so yeah, I didn't end up reading that. But I know that I do like Sophocles because I love Antigone, but I definitely need to go back and read that because I do enjoy Sophocles, but I never got to read it. But anyway, so another book that I had to read was Utopia by Thomas More, which I actually did read. It's a man who was travelling and met this other man who had been to this place called Utopia, and this country is like a utopian world basically, and he's describing how their politics works and how their country is run in general and how their people interact with each other. It's quite short as well. Some of it is like quite entertaining and quite good to read if you're into like kind of politics and philosophy and that kind of thing, but if not, then I definitely wouldn't recommend it. I did read it quite quickly, which is rare for me, so that is saying something, but I don't know if it was because I wanted to get through it or because I was enjoying it. I don't know. I did enjoy bits and pieces of it, but definitely not one of my favourites out of this year. Definitely not. I think I gave it like 2 or 3 stars. So another book that I had to read was The Fairy Queen by Edmund Spenser, which I didn't read all of. I think I read just a few bits and pieces that we were told to read that were like the most essential bits, because it is quite long and it is in Middle English, which I struggle to read. Like it's difficult to read. You have to spend like a lot of time reading it, so it takes a lot longer than you'd expect. To be honest, it wasn't that memorable. I'm just not really into the whole like Middle English kind of stuff. stuff. Yeah, anyway, that was another one that I had to read. So another play that I had to read was Volpone by Ben Jonson. It's a comedy from around like the Restoration period, and I actually only got halfway through that as well. As you can see, like I didn't read most of these. To be fair, like from what I did read, it was quite funny and I was quite enjoying it, and I meant to go back to it but I just never did, basically. So another play that I had to read was Twelfth Night by Shakespeare, which I absolutely loved. Genuinely, like it has become like one of my favourite Shakespeare plays. Like genuinely, it's absolutely amazing and like absolutely hilarious. Genuinely, like I would highly recommend it. It's just like a typical Shakespeare comedy, like full of misunderstandings and disguises and everything. But if you haven't read it yet, I would definitely recommend it. It's actually quite an easy read for Shakespeare. So if you're not like used to reading Shakespeare, I would actually highly recommend Twelfth Night because I absolutely loved it. Like it was really, really good. Or if you are into Shakespeare and if you haven't read it yet, then 100% read Twelfth Night. It's so, so good and it's actually really funny as well. So I really, really enjoyed that. Another play that I had to read was The Duchess of Malfi by John Webster, which I didn't really enjoy, and to be honest, like I don't really have like much memory of it because I really didn't enjoy it. I can't even remember if it was a comedy or tragedy now. I feel like it was like, I can't even remember, to be honest. I really didn't enjoy it, and in my seminar I literally said like I did not like that. Everybody else seemed to like really enjoy it, but I was like, I really didn't like that. I didn't think it was anything special. I just thought it was like rushed. The scenes changed really confusingly. It just didn't really make much sense, to be honest. I just didn't think it was good, especially like in comparison to like Shakespeare's plays and things. It just like, it doesn't compare, and I just was like really let down by it. For some reason a lot of people liked it, but I just really didn't, and I just think it's very forgettable. Yeah, I really didn't like that. So another thing that I had to read was Paradise Lost by John Milton, which I didn't even attempt. As I said, I was like probably reading something else and trying to catch up with something else at the time, and just didn't end up getting to Paradise Lost, which is quite bad because I feel like it's like quite an essential thing for me to read at some point, but I just never read it, to be honest, so I don't have an opinion because I never got to it. So another play that I had to read was The Rover by Afra Ban, which I found to be funny at times but also quite horrific to read now because the way like the men treat the women in it is like horrific. It's supposed to be funny, and I get that it would have been funny in that kind of time. Like I've never actually read anything quite as actually horrific as that, because like obviously I don't think that's really often like found in Shakespeare or anything, so it was a wee bit shocking to read. And even though like it was well written and enjoyable enough, I definitely wouldn't read it again, to be honest. Okay, so the next thing that I read was The Rape of the Lock by Aleksandr, which is basically a long poem, but it's basically like a mock epic, and since I don't really find that kind of thing entertaining, I really struggle to enjoy it. Like it's supposed to be like a comedy and things, but I just, to be honest, I didn't really get it, and I didn't really get why it was supposed to be funny. Well, I got why it was supposed to be funny, but to me it wasn't funny, so I didn't really enjoy it. Like it isn't that long, so like if that sounds interesting to you, like read it. It's basically somebody steals a bit of somebody's hair, and that's why it's called like The Rape of the Lock. I just didn't really find it like that good. Like maybe I just didn't understand it enough to find it funny, or like I didn't understand that kind of time period enough. I don't know, I just didn't find it very good. And so the last book that I had to read this year was Gulliver's Travels by Jonathan Swift. I also didn't finish this. It actually sounds so bad. Like I literally like read like everything really for like the first half, and then for the second half of the year like didn't do anything. Yeah, I got halfway through, or more than halfway through Gulliver's Travels, and honestly it was like the most repetitive thing ever. Like I still want to finish it, but like I physically like cannot force myself to. Like it's so repetitive. Like he goes to another place, and then he goes to a different place, and then he goes to a different place, and it just starts to get really boring. Like I did enjoy him being in like Lilliput and everything, but then after that it gets like really repetitive, and I just didn't really enjoy it. So yeah, I don't know, but I haven't finished it, so I can't really rate it yet. So that's it for this video. I know it's probably not that entertaining hearing me talking about these, especially if you're not into like classics, but it's not entertaining anyway considering I didn't even finish most of them. But I just kind of wanted to set out what you're supposed to read and like my opinions on the ones that I actually did end up reading. I really hope you enjoyed watching, and if you did, please like and subscribe because I would really appreciate that, and I will see you in the next one.